Pushkin.
Hard conversations, I think we talk about them as if there's these discrete things. What hard conversations are in service of is a relationship, and that is ongoing.
Anna Sale is the creator and host of Death, Sex, and Money, a show that explores the big questions and hard choices that are often left out of polite conversation. She believes that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say during a tough conversation is nothing at all.
I think often when people jump in to fill gaps in silence, it's to indicate that having an uncomfortable feeling is okay. And maybe there's this other thing, like, have you talked to a therapist? Like we want to say something that's going to make it feel tolerable. And sometimes big things just need a little bit of air.
On today's show, how to have hard conversations. I'm Maya Shankar, a scientist who studies human behavior, and this is A Slight Change of Plans, a show about who we are and who we become in the face of a big change. Lately, the world has been feeling super heavy, and it's made me lose my appetite for hard conversations in my personal life about even the small stuff. This worries me because hard conversations are essential. They're how we process and work through the challenges in our lives. Today's episode is a gentle nudge to initiate those conversations that need to be had and to bring our empathy, patience, and care to these exchanges. Anna Sale has spent her career leaning into difficult topics, both on her podcast and for her book, Let's Talk About Hard Things, the life-changing conversations that connect us. In this episode, Anna reflects on what she's learned, what's helped, what hasn't, and what she's still figuring out. I wonder if you remember a time where you really struggled to say something important to someone else, and what was it about it that made it so hard?
I have 4 sisters. So in any family, as you get older, you realize that like the different siblings have very different experiences in the family, depending on how they align with parents' expectations. Or
I'm one of 4.
So
Totally get it.
Yeah. So I remember different sisters of mine at different points in their lives, teenagers, college, just would have different responses to the way they talked about our parents, or whether they felt like they had our parents' approval. And I was a middle kid who did well in school. And when I did things that were against the rules, I never got caught. So I just slid through, I just knew how to bob and weave and didn't really have trouble with my parents. And other sisters of mine, they had different responses to confrontation and had different relationships with our parents. And so I can remember those early conversations about, trying to understand when something was upsetting them, and then also having that parallel conversation or desire to be protective of how I saw our family and how I saw our parents. It was too upsetting to let their version of what their experience in our family had been for me to sit with the conversation.
Do you feel like you play a mediator role within your own family, which is when you see that there's some sort of strife, you try and actually facilitate an open dialogue about it?
Yes, and I think I would have more fully owned that earlier in my life, because there's a way that fit with my idea of myself as super relationally advanced and skillful. But there's this way that trying to be in the middle and moderate and help people hear each other in ways that you think that they're missing, that's a power move that's kind of obnoxious. So when you step in to moderate something, you're becoming the podcast host in the difficult relational piece in your family. And not everybody wants you to play that role.
Absolutely. I ask this because I am cut from the same cloth. I don't know if it's a pathology around peace-seeking or the fact that my brain kind of instinctively says, of course, a conversation would make this better. But I feel such an impatience with silence and with just pushing stuff under the rug that I feel like a desperation in my life to expose everything, even if it leads to a sense of calamity in the moment. I think I just instinctively believe there'll be some sort of payoff down the line.
Yeah, so you're a disruptor.
Yeah, very disruptive. And often it works, but then sometimes it makes things worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really a failure of mine to empathize with the person who would prefer to not talk about the thing. I'm placing kind of a norm on the other person, or I'm assuming they carry my psychology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I totally get that impulse, especially when it's like among people you really love and you want it to get on with it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just like get on with it and move to a new way of understanding each other. I mean, I wrote a book, I wrote a memoir, had a whole chapter about family. I was like sharing drafts with all my family members. How's this read to you? How's this read to you? So I think I was definitely playing that role when I was doing that. And then it was kind of like, okay, I've done that. I'm just going to like step back and let everybody have their own experience in the family and sort of be a member of it and observe and realize that this is an organism that has a lot of different stuff going on.
Yeah. So zooming out a little bit, I mean, you've obviously made a career around having difficult conversations with people. How do you prepare for a hard conversation with someone, with your family, with your husband, with friends?
Yeah. When I think of hard conversations now, they don't happen during podcast recordings. They happen with my husband. They happen with my closest friends, because those are the ones where there's stakes and where it hurts if you feel like your intentions are not sort of seen clearly, or that I'm missing something that I'm doing that's really hurtful. Or so I think that the way that I try to prepare is I can feel it in my body when I get seized up with sort of like, I got something I've got to bring up, I'm feeling wronged, and often it's something around feeling overwhelmed, or like some way that I've tried really hard hasn't been sufficiently acknowledged and I'm worn out. And it's really hard not to just start the conversation right in that, like pissed off way.
Yeah, like you don't appreciate that I'm doing the dishes every night.
Yeah. And that doesn't always go well. It's like, how do I slow down and take a breath? And then after I sort of can breathe a minute, I have just a little bit more space around the emotion of it, that I can like be a little bit more in control of how I respond. Because when I don't take that minute, it's just, if you're pissed, you've got something to say, it doesn't land well, and then you're feeling like you're having to defend yourself, then it's just like tight self-protection, defensive Anna. She's just going to be present and protecting herself until she gets tired. Then you can finally resolve.
And I'm assuming you lack receptivity to what the other person's saying. So nothing other than, Anna, you are totally right.
Oh my God.
And
how could I not have seen?
And I think to myself every day how lucky I am that you were willing to marry me and that you do the dishes.
My God, Maya, maybe we should get married.
I know, I think so. So I think we can all imagine pretty clearly what the pissed off version looks like. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, you never appreciate me. What is the more, like take a deep breath, slightly more reflective version of that conversation look like?
What I try to do is just starting that conversation with like, okay, can we back up and talk about how we hope this thing goes? What do you hope for it? What do I hope for it? It's trying to get to that place where you have the spirit of, okay, I am doing the best I can. And this person I have conflict with right now is doing the best he can. And how do I not lash out is a good word, because like my kids are elementary school age, and I can see when I lose my patience and I get a little like snippy, it almost goes down like a little ladder. I get snippy about something, get your shoes on, get in the car, and then I can watch my 9-year-old get snippy with my 6-year-old. And it's just like, oh, this isn't about some like fundamental, misalignment and chores in this house. This is like, I felt bad. I made somebody else feel bad. They made somebody else feel bad.
What about the conversations where you have no idea where it's going to go? You don't know if they're even willing to talk about it. How do you prepare for something like that?
I think I have a friend who lost her dad. It's been a few months, and every interaction that I have, I'm aware, oh, we're catching up, and I want to know how she's doing with grief. But I don't want to be that friend who, like, every time we call, I'm like, how are you? You know? I've been close to enough people in grief who know, like, oh God, there's this weird currency to getting updates on how I'm doing that people want in on. And I don't want to be that friend. I want to be the friend who just like swims up to him and is like, what's going on today? We can talk about the weather. We can talk about whatever. We can talk about a memory.
Or we can talk about your dad.
Or we can talk about
and how much you miss him. Yeah.
You know? So that's like a micro version of like, how's this going to go? It's kind of like when you know somebody's going through something, but I don't want to be that friend who's like, you know, how's it going? What are your da-da-da-da? How's your heartbreak today? You know? There's other things where, say there's like a revelation where somebody is revealing something that's going to fundamentally change the way the person you're telling understands the world and their place in it. And I think with those conversations, if you can control the circumstances, it's to like prepare yourself, prepare the person that there's going to be sort of a different kind of, can I talk to you about something important? You know, you create a little cocoon somehow for a different kind of conversation. I think the best kind of planning for a hard conversation is like you plan for what you're going to say to the person who's going to find out the thing. And then you have concentric circles outside of that of the other people who know you're having the conversation. So you can like debrief and get support from them so that the initial reaction of the person isn't something that you need to go a certain way. Because you just can't control that. If somebody's finding out something fundamental about your relationship or something that hasn't been honest, or if you're a manager who has to lay somebody off, you can't go into that conversation expecting that they're going to like appreciate hearing that information from you.
Yeah. What about when you're preparing for a conversation where you might be on the receiving end of the revelation? So you can tell someone's carrying something really heavy, and your goal in the conversation is to create a space where they could maybe feel comfortable opening up to you about it.
I think that the thing that I have learned from talking to both people I love and am close to in real life and people who are strangers as a journalist about being that person that is someone is like sharing something that they haven't shared before is it's a huge compliment, but more and more like it is an immense responsibility because there's like, what is your first reaction? Are you trying to like lighten the mood and you laugh and it could be construed as you laughing at them? Is it like you don't know what to do with the information and you feel like you want to offer some immediate prescriptive advice that's going to help make it feel less heavy, and then that feels really pat and like you didn't hear them? I've done all these things, by the way. I just want to be clear. I've made all of these mistakes. You have a responsibility to clarify with this person what the expectation is about what you are going to do with this information, how much it's kept confidential, who you might share it with and why, what you might do to help them, support them, or advocate for them. You need their permission to do that. I liked fashioning myself somebody who people would confide in. That has long been part of my identity. And now I almost feel, rather than like going immediately into leaning in, I keep the middle distance a little bit to make sure I'm the right person. Like recognizing your ability to empathize and the limits of your ability to empathize. It's like, am I the right person? And maybe I am the right person, but I'm not the right person right now.
Yeah.
Like
oh my gosh,
other
totally.
mistakes I've made is not be clear about my ability to show up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Something about raising young kids is I've disappointed a lot of people and let some friendships that were very like core to me, they're a little bit dried up and need watering when I get more capacity. So I think that's the other thing, is making sure you're checking in as you can, and when you can't check in, figure out how to like acknowledge that so that they don't feel abandoned.
I'm so curious to know how having kids has shaped how you think about difficult conversations. You're a mom to 2 young children, and I imagine you don't engage with them as you do with adults. So how have you been navigating that space?
It is profound. Something I think about a lot is restraint. I have daughters, so there's like a mother-daughter, just like picture a mother-daughter trope. And in my version, there's like the way it expresses itself is I'm both the person that they feel the most comfortable sort of falling apart with after a long day of school. So they're the most like bratty to me of anybody in their lives.
You're their safe space, Anna. That's what I always hear. I had a friend tell me recently, I don't want to be my child's safe space anymore.
Man, it's trying. So there's that. And then there's also when I really want them to get something, and if I've had to repeat it, or if it's something, the way it shows up a lot is like if there's something about interacting socially that feels very core to our values as a family, whether it's how we talk to people we're just meeting and manners, or how we just deal with people who are different from us. Like your responsibility as a parent is to teach this child how to live in civilization, right? The stakes are high, but kids can only take in so much high-minded instruction. So like there's a certain point where you just get totally tuned out. I think this is the same for whether you're talking to a child or a grown-up. We all have our openings where we can hear, and we have our times when we just like, we're like, whatever, what do I need to say to get this lady to stop talking to me and move to my next thing? And so I think being a parent has made me much more aware about watching for your spots and making sure you don't fill the space so that them reflecting on something from the backseat of the car when you're driving, you just like don't talk over that because you've got some lesson to impart.
I love that.
Kids' timelines are different than grown-ups. I mean, just imagine, I'm like somebody I've built my professional life around getting in there with people, and I'm going to do it with my kids. And like, you know what, Anna, you gotta pace yourself.
We'll be back in a moment with a slight change of plans. What's your advice when you feel like a difficult conversation needs to happen, but the other person does not want to engage? So let's say there's a conflict at work or with your partner and they're just not having it. What do you do in a situation like that?
You can't force somebody to engage in a way that you want them to engage. And so then the questions are, if this person can't be with me in this way that I want them to be and expect them to be, and they're letting me down, can I still have a relationship with them? Or do I want to be around them? You know, and certainly an employer-employee relationship is lower stakes to move on from than somebody in your family of origin. Like, can you figure out another way to be in relationship with them, but have things that you can't expect from each other, you know? If I feel like I need something from someone and they are not giving it to me, what do I do? That's a question about who you are. And you have to sit with all those different possibilities that could raise. You know, I was married before, and in my first marriage, any relationship has conflicts, right? And you're literally just like part of getting to know each other. You discover the ways that you're different. You discover the places where we kind of misalign and have to work at it. And then when a relationship, you know, that balance of like, we've lost so much of the connective tissue that holds this together. And I'm not giving you what you need, and you're not giving me what I need because we want different things. You sort of note it. You feel its heaviness. You think about, can I carry this around? Is this going to change? Is this temporary or is this forever? What does it mean about me that I don't know how to have this relationship continue if we can't figure out this core hard conversation? Who am I if I'm somebody who doesn't want to stay in a marriage? It's just like this just kind of swamp you have to trudge through to think like, what of this can I tolerate and figure out how to live with? And how much of this is so heavy and boggy that like I'm getting stuck in this mud?
If the person is willing to engage, but you feel like there's a moment in the conversation where they're starting to close off, do you have any advice for how to help the walls go back down? Or do you just kind of pivot? Do you take a break?
I would try saying like, I notice that seems like you're getting tired of this conversation. I notice that you're sort of losing energy here. Do you want to talk about this at another time? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Like just kind of doing that thing where you notice, you make something that's unspoken or maybe meta about the interaction and you make it explicit and then see if it opens up. And they might tell you like, when you said that one word 4 sentences ago, it really pissed me off, and you might not have been aware of it. Or it might be that you've talked for 50 minutes and it's, 11:45 p.m. and it's not the time to like come to a resolution. To be continued can be okay. It can be really scary for people who think of themselves as like, I resolve conflict.
Exactly.
To like sit with something that's unresolved.
My worst nightmare, Anna. Can't even sleep.
Well, I think that that's so interesting because I feel that way too. And it's like something that my husband sometimes says when we're like in the middle of some kind of hard discussion. He'll be like, we're going to be okay. But this really pisses me off when you do this. It's just like so little. But just like it just says, I'm not rejecting the whole idea of you as a human person, Anna. You are not bad.
Right. And this relationship is not over.
Yeah. Because it gets to like our own feelings of where we feel insecure and worthy, et cetera. So I don't know. I think practicing sitting with unresolved conversations is really powerful.
I just felt that in my soul, by the way. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I felt like you were going to say something else.
I think we'll let it resonate in your soul a little bit. Ding.
Yeah, that is what I personally need to practice. I need to practice sitting in the discomfort of an unresolved conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this will resonate with that. We want closure. We're desperate for closure and clarity and definitive answers. And so when we don't get that on our timeline, when we impose our timeline on someone else who has a very different timeline and a very different level of patience and tolerance for uncertainty or unresolved things, that's when we drive ourselves crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a little bit like that gear that I will go into at a dinner party. It's the way I like to relate to somebody is by like driving right to them. The other thing about that interaction is I never feel out of control. I am like engaging with somebody in the way that I want to engage with them. And if they're giving it back to me, we're like digging in. I don't feel out of control. I feel out of control when somebody's like, I don't want to engage with you in the way that you're coming at me. Yes. It's like, what?
Yes. Okay, wait, tell me more about that. So like when you're doing the Anna version and they're not having it, and you can kind of feel like things are going off the rails a little bit. Are there questions or phrases or mechanisms you have to help pull yourself back for a second and kind of recalibrate and like re-engage?
I mean, I think it's just, I think it's off-putting to me or it's surprising to me because it's an affront to my version of charm. I'm like, this is how I work. And you're not meeting me and it'll make me feel self-conscious. It'll make me be like, oh God, don't they see that I'm coming with good intentions and I'm good and I'm worthy and I'm righteous and whatever. Like I'm curious. I'm all the things that I was taught to be in Unitarian Church. You know what I mean? But the fact is, like, I'm not in control. I think of it in 3D. It's three-dimensional space. It's not me being able to come at somebody and have the kind of transaction I most want to have to feel the most emotionally sort of secure and fed. But like if I can figure out how to be next to them without needing them to like do the thing in the way that I know how to do it best, and I can be patient and humble, It is a surrender of control. It's like, Anna, you have no idea what somebody is going through in a certain day. Even somebody you know really well. If it's not clicking, you're going to think, oh, it's me, and I want to figure out how to like get back into click, and I'm going to like force it. But sometimes it's just like not your day.
You know, a lot of us, when we think about approaching hard conversations, we focus so much on saying the right thing. So in my head, I'm rehearsing throughout the day exactly how I'm going to phrase this line and that line, and what's my delivery going to be like, and anticipating what they're going to say in response. And we forget actually that one of the greatest tools at our disposal is silence. Mm-hmm. It's just letting moments sit. You're the queen of observing silences. So tell me a bit more about that.
It's a little bit like when you're talking with someone and something has just happened, like you feel it happen in a conversation, whether it's a sentence that sums up something really big that you were sort of talking towards, and then like, oof. It's almost like when you don't rush in to just tell them you understood, or you have another question, or like make them feel better, when you just sit and just let it, it's kind of like throwing a rock into a pond. Like you just let it have its moment. It's sort of a sign of reverence for what has just been expressed. It also can be just like you're a musician. It's sort of like a rest, or almost like if it's a really big thing, you're like, maybe we need to move to the next movement. I want to just like respect that this was something. So what I'll do, this isn't conscious, but I've noticed myself over the years, like just sitting, and I'll take a deep breath in an interview setting, and then I'll notice the person I'm interviewing will take a deep breath because they've been sort of moving towards this thing, and then something happens. And then it's like, oh, yeah. It's letting something be big without having to be fixed or smoothed over or sanded over. I think often when people jump in to fill gaps in silence, it's to indicate that having an uncomfortable feeling is okay. And maybe there's this other thing, like, have you talked to a therapist? Like we want to say something that's going to make it feel tolerable. And sometimes just big things just need a little bit of air before you can start thinking about what to do about them.
For someone who's listening, who's mustered up the courage to have that big, hard conversation, is there one final thought you would leave them with, or some form of encouragement or some wisdom from all of your years doing this in your personal and professional life?
I think if you're on the doorstep of a conversation that makes you feel intimidated and nervous, just practice. It might seem so dorky, but practicing really helps with someone who knows you, with someone who can sit with you and say, like, what's the most important objective you have for this conversation? Is it to tell them this thing? Is it to feel reconnected in this other way? Like, we have a lot of different mixed objectives when we have relational conversations, and there's sometimes at cross purposes, and it can be so clarifying to just have an ally who helps you figure out just that forest of feelings so that you can feel confident that what you are trying to express or bringing to the conversation is something you've thought through. And then you have that person to come back around to, whether the conversation goes well or goes terribly, because these things are not one and done. Like these hard conversations, I think we talk about them as if they're these discrete things. What hard conversations are in service of is a relationship, and that is ongoing. And so it's about that particular relationship where you want to talk about that thing, and then surrounding yourself with one or as many relationships as you need to feel like you've got backup to go into that scary thing.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow A Slight Change of Plans wherever you listen to podcasts. And join me next time when we explore what happens when the dream you've spent your whole life chasing begins to hurt your well-being.
I almost saw myself as this piece of glass, and it got a crack, and you get up and you try to, put a little Band-Aid on it, that doesn't work. And then another crack, and another, and then you kind of just wonder at what point is it just gonna shatter.
That's next time on A Slight Change of Plans. A Slight Change of Plans is created, written, and executive produced by me, Maya Shankar. The Slight Change family includes our showrunner, Tyler Green, our senior editor, Kate Parkinson Morgan, our producers, Brittany Cronin and Megan Lubin, and our sound engineer, Erica Huang. Luis Guerra wrote our delightful theme song, and Ginger Smith helped arrange the vocals. A Slight Change of Plans is a production of Pushkin Industries, so big thanks to everyone there. And of course, a very special thanks to Jimmy Lee. You can follow A Slight Change of Plans on Instagram at Dr. Maya Shankar. See you next week.